respected resource person of the day, Dr. Ajay Sheker, and our beloved HOD, Dr. Rizwana, all the participants present here, the scholars, the delegates from other colleges, and my very beloved students. A very warm good afternoon to you all, but who visit the Queen's Park Strength. We had two very powerful talks in the morning session. Dr. Dasan left us confused, to borrow his own word. It was a very unsettling presentation, leaving us, quite leaving us thoughtful. Now, here we have, in Kerala, as Keralites, we always take pride in the fact that, we are the most literate state in India. And as an offshoot of that, we also have this belief that, our people are more tolerant, and the injustices that, that are meted out to the Dalits and Bahujan Dalits are comparatively less. And Dasan was also talking about, the kind of hypocrisy that we carry with us. And the irony is that, despite the fact that probably we are the most literate state in India, when it comes to Dalit aesthetics, we are, we were quite late as compared to Maharashtra and, the Tamil academicians and academia. And moreover, we are living at a time when histories are being rewritten, histories are being erased. Rather than the word rewritten, I would prefer to use the word, histories are being manufactured, maybe not manufactured, but manufactured. Neologism, I hope to use here in this context, especially in the context of the fascist regimes around us. And the danger lies in the fact, in such erasures, the histories that have been very painfully, reimagined and reinstated by our social reformers, again have this danger of being obliterated. And in this context, we have with us the right person to speak on the topic, because we know that it's not just a single story there, but we have multiple single stories, and to sustain that, we need to remind ourselves. And these platforms, such talks, actually offer stages where one gets to reassert, where one should be coerced, to remember the struggles of the past that has given us this privilege that we enjoy to a great extent, while remembering also the struggles that are still prevalent. Having said that, I'm extremely privileged, and it's also my pleasure to welcome you all to the session. And we know Ajay Sheker sir is quite well known. He's a his dedication to this cause of Dalit aesthetics and Dalit politics is quite known across India. And maybe I can very authentically say that he needs no introduction, but still, I think, as a on a formal note, I need to, bring out his credentials here. And as our students mentioned earlier, Dr. Ajay Sheker is from the Department of English at Sree Shankaracharya University, Sanskrit, Kalady. And with 13 years of dedicated service as an assistant professor, Dr. Sheker has been at the forefront of scholarship, supervising numerous PhDs and MPhil scholars. His areas of expertise span post-colonial subaltern studies, cultural studies, race and ethnicity studies, gender and caste studies, Kerala modernity, Dalit studies and new literatures, and also Dalitbahujan studies and Buddhist studies. And all these reflect a deep commitment to understanding the unraveling of complexities of the marginalized or the narratives of the peripheries. And his contributions, his extensive contributions, is actually recognized in the many awards that he has actually won. He's won the RDR Deepam Award, Sahodaran Sahitya Puraskaram, and the Lord Buddha Universal Award, all showcase the impact of his work in this particular field. And Dr. Sheker's critical writings and translations also have special space in the academic circles. And he's come out with many publications such as Indian literature. His articles have been published in all these very reputed journals, in LitCrit, in EPW, humanities circles, and numerous other journals as well. And his translations also have been included in the syllabi of the NT University, Calicut University, and Kannur University. And some of his recently published titles include Representing the Margin, Caste and Gender in Indian Fiction, Sahodaran Ayyappan, Towards a Democratic Future, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and Nanu Guruvinde Atma Sahodariyum, Madhyatara Bahuswara Darshanam, Kerala Navothana, amongst many other publications, which is a huge achievement and reflects his commitment to his cause. And it's indeed a privilege for me to welcome Ajay Sheker sir, and please join me in extending a warm welcome to Professor Ajay Sheker. And I think this is the moment you have all been waiting for. And sir, please.
Respected Chair and dear friends, colleagues, researchers, students of the department and Farooq College, I thank you for this opportunity. I'm really grateful to Dr. Swana and all the other professors and faculty members and students and researchers of the department, and also some friends from other colleges and institutions here. Today I'm supposed to speak about making the canon more inclusive, and Professor M. Dasan has spoken well about the importance of Dalit literature and the linkages between Dalit literature and Ambedkarism and Buddhism, and also the key concern with critiquing caste and annihilation of caste as Baba Sahib's own dream and his pivotal kind of struggle, life struggle represents. So this is a great act of deliverance and liberation and democracy that we are into while we are studying and reformulating the canon in Dalit literatures of India. We are actually entering into a socio-cultural and political struggle, a life struggle of the people who are denied justice and equality and liberty in this country. Those people who are the majority. The Dalitbahujan concept itself is originally from the Buddha. Dalit, of course, from Mahatma Phule, and later by the Marathi Dalit movement and the Hindi Dalit movement. But the term Bahujan was originally used by the Buddha some 2,600 years ago in BCE 6th century. Gautama the Buddha has used the term Bahujan to refer to the people, the common people. The common people everywhere, they are called the Bahujans as against the Brahman, as a counter claim and a cultural advantage or identity. He used the term Bahujan to refer to the people at large. And that is why we are now making it more broader as against the majoritarian kind of totalitarian xenophobic jingoism, the cultural forms of nationalism on the rise in India. that has almost engulfed it, and we are into the alarming states of violence and pogroms and even genocidal kind of threats are the in the country today, especially after the dismantling of the original democratic constitution of Ambedkar, as imagined by our founding fathers, especially Baba Sahib. That has been consistently suspended and diluted and compromised and amended and altered, as in the 103rd Amendment that happened recently in 2019 and attested by the Constitutional Bench of the Supreme Court very recently, 2023. The EWS for the overrepresented caste Hindus and the forward has actually sabotaged completely the ethics and the foundational pillars of justice of our constitution. And also now what is happening from the 2020s onwards began in 2016, that is called the NEP project of the new regime. The Hindu Nationalist Party has advanced that, and unfortunately, even states that boast about counter-hegemonic and counter-Hindutva positions and politics, like Kerala, for example. In Kerala, these things are implemented at first, and they are even challenging the union regime. Whether it is the EWS, the kind of so-called economic reservation given to the forward castes and groups. Actually, we know that Professor Dasan has also elaborated. Representation is the key to democracy. There is no democracy without representation. Democracy itself is defined as the politics of the people and the politics of representation. Only through proxy and through representative forms of government, various social sections will get social democracy and social justice. These are the foundational grounds of our constitution, as envisioned by Baba Sahib and others. But here, in a kind of complete sabotage, in a radical kind of sabotage, it is being undone, and the overrepresented. The forward constitutionally means the overrepresented. The backward constitutionally, legally in India means the underrepresented or the unrepresented. Social groups are realities in every part of the world. In every modern democratic republics, we have various social sections. Social inequality is a reality. But here, the already overrepresented caste Hindu groups and so-called forward groups are given a special kind of acceleration and reservation that is called the economic weakness of the so-called forward, EWS. So that has completely sabotaged the foundation of democracy and the constitutional morality and ethics, and the unrepresented are further denied their due rights to power, to be represented in public service, in education at large, and all the other public sectors where people are getting jobs or getting a kind of inclusion. So this is the alarming condition in which we are rethinking about our democracy and talking about further struggling to democratize the education, especially at the wake of this NEP, a nationalist project. It is called the National Education Policy. The draft came out in 2016 and it was passed by the parliament in 2020 and it is now being implemented. Many states have they have declared that, like Tamil Nadu, they have declared that they are not going to do this, the EWS or NEP. They have not done anything to implement it. Many states who actually signed that agreement during the BJP regime in Karnataka, for example, our neighbors, Karnataka, what is happening in Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, or Telangana or Maharashtra or Odisha, we must make a note of. So Karnataka, who actually they have signed it, and they tried to aggressively implement it from 2020 onwards, the moment it was passed by the union regime in the parliament. But when Congress came last year, 2023, when Congress won the state elections, the legislative assembly elections, they have completely discarded it and they have retracted. They have withdrawn from that signed pact. So this is happening, but unfortunately, in Kerala, this is very aggressively, with an overwhelming kind of spirit, in an unprecedented fashion, it is being implemented. As it was done in the Devasu Board in 2018, that EWS was first passed in Kerala through the left in 2018 in Devasum Board, a typical example, which is a model for the whole world and India. In Devasum Board, it was 96% filled with a particular caste Hindu group. 96% was over-represented or overwhelmingly monopolized by a particular caste Hindu group. You know the caste group who were 96%, and this 10% claim of EWS was done, and 10 more percent. That means more than 100%, more than 10% reservation was grabbed, and nobody was troubled. Only a few activists like us who were speaking against it and writing against it, and for that we were punished also. So this is the alarming condition, and this is the absurdity of what you call the economic weakness of the forward. Forward means already overrepresented. And how can you give democratic representation to the already overrepresented groups? And actually it is for the unrepresented, like the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, the other so-called backward or unrepresented or underrepresented groups. That is what it is for. It's not for the economic weakness of the already overrepresented caste Hindus or Savarnas. Oh, okay. Anyway, unfortunately, the constitutional bench, with a kind of 2 or 3 against 2 kind of judgment, even the Chief Justice, he dissented on this kind of a note recently in 2013, when the Supreme Court also attested and validated that kind of a bill, that EWS bill. They validated it. But 2 judges, including the Chief Justice, they have opined against it, and it is against the basic structure of the Constitution. That was their learned kind of observation. Anyway, this is the context in which, in the context of EWS and NAP, that is actually destroying the Constitution, the democracy, and the higher education system, the whole of education, from the school level to the college and the university level. That is what we are talking about, the struggle to include more voices and to make it more representative, the pedagogy or education system, the art and philosophy and the technique of teaching. We need to make it more representative and inclusive, and the diversity of the society, various social sections, the minorities in particular, and the other contested sections of the society, they must get their due and adequate shares in this pedagogy, in the education system, and in the shares of power, in the corridors of power from panchayat to parliament. They must get their due and adequate shares, due and adequate representation of all communities. That was the original dream of Ben. In 1930s, when he went to London for the roundtable conferences, he was drafting a kind of futuristic constitution for India. We know that the Constitutional Assembly was formed only in the 1940s, mid-1940s, 1946 and 47. But some 2 decades ago, he was drafting the original constitution, his envisioned kind of philosophy of justice and equality and liberty, his democratic constitution he was drafting, and the original expression that he used is due and adequate representation of all communities, not the monopoly of the overrepresented caste. Unless it will become a handing over of power from the British colonial imperialists or imperial elites to the Indian elites, the caste people. So that is why from 1930, early 1930s onwards, he was doing it like a mantra. Like Southern Ayyappan has Ambedkar as his mantra. Ambedkar, thy name would be chanted as a mantra. Ambedkar, thy name would be chanted as a Sharana mantra of Buddhism, obviously, by the people of India who are worshipful and respectful for the contributions that you have done towards the creation of an egalitarian, democratic society, just society in India by writing the Constitution. That's the lines that were written by, published by Sahodana Ayyappan in Kerala in 1946, 47 period, when Ambedkar came to the Constituent Assembly with a lot of difficulties while fighting it out from Bengal with the help of the Muslim League and many other friends and minorities. He got into that great deal of struggle was required. And that moment when Dalit literature was not even born in Maharashtra, in modern Marathi, it became a post-Ambedkar kind of phenomenon. Lakshman Gaikwad, Lakshman Mane, Raja Thale, Arun Kaple, all these Dalit poets and writers, and Dalit Panther also mentioned by Professor Dasan this morning. Dalit Panther movement, Dalit power movement, and all those Dalit Sankarsh Samati in Maharashtra, all these things came after Ambedkar, after his demise in 1956. After December 6, 1956, that day they chose to demolish the masjid also. And also the burning of Graham's chains. The 25th anniversary is the 22nd of January. That day they chose to install that idol by the Prime Minister himself and completing that Ram Raj or the Hindu Rashtra, the project of Savarkar and Golwalkar and Hegdewar and Muche that they have started some 100 years ago, 1925. That is the foundation of the RSS. Even before that, Ambedkar was chanting this mantra of due and adequate representation of all communities. That was his dream. Okay, anyway, this is the kind of situation in which we are talking about inclusivizing and democratizing the canon, making it more multicultural, as Professor Dasan has said, showing the diversity, reflecting the diversity. You need representative, different, diverse texts in the syllabi, in the pedagogy, so that your education system remain a kind of democratic system. Only through that kind of just and due representation of the real majority of people, you can make it democratic and inclusive. So that is the struggle that we are into, and mine is also such a humble kind of life struggle, and that is why we are talking about Poykayil Ammachi and Poykayil Ammachi and Kurumban Daivatan and many Mooloor and many others. So it can be more widened, more opened up and made more inclusive, so that not just the scheduled tribes and the scheduled castes, but the OBCs and even the minorities and those who cherish democracy. All those people can be, the majority of people can be made inclusive, and they can be linked in one way or the other. So it is an act of democracy and inclusion, making it more multicultural and diverse and different. That is the attempt. That is why we are talking about these silenced and erased voices, because Poykayil Ammachi was prevented from printing for almost 100 years. He was born in late 19th century. He was one of the major voices of the Kerala Renaissance model and modernity. And he spoke for the most downtrodden people, the Dalits and the slaves, the former slaves The caste slavery was there. We talk about the African American South and slavery, but we forget that slavery was there in Travancore and in Kochi and also in parts of Malabar till the missionaries have arrived. So Professor Dasan talked about that college, Basel Mission. They have founded it all in Calicut and Malabar. Basel Mission and the Protestant groups like the London Missionary Society, the LMS group, and the CMS, Christ Missionary Societies and all. They have actually worked, and they have, especially missionaries and administrators, colonial administrators like Colonel John Monroe. They have actually worked hard and pressurized the queens and kings of Travancore and Cochin to abolish many casteist practices. Many casteist taxes were on the breast and the head of women, Avarna women in particular, all the untouchable women, Dalits and OBCs in particular. There were plenty of taxes, caste taxes, plenty of execution methods like Kajuvetal was there. And it is the missionaries and the colonial administrators who are more sympathetic to the plight of the caste, the outcasts here. They have tried to abolish it all. Only in 1812, Colonel Monroe forced the Travancore region queens to withdraw many heinous, inhuman casteist taxes on the head and breast of women, of Avarna women in particular. Nangeli, that Avarna woman, she committed suicide by chopping off her breast to protest against the infamous breast tax of Travancore that was withdrawn. And Colonel Monroe, that she did it in 1803, Cherthali, which is part of the Alapura district now. And that tax was taken away only in 1812, when Colonel Monroe, the missionary, became the Divan and resident, British resident of Travancore and Kochi. So we forget all these things, the struggle against the caste system, the Dalitbahujan massacre that happened in 1806, where the untouchable youth, some 200 of them, they tried to enter the Vaikam shrine, which was originally a Buddhist shrine. And only in 16th century, 1539, it was made into a Brahminical Hindu Shaivite temple. And then the Bahujans, the people, the Buddhist laity, the population were prevented from even coming near it. And in 1806, when British rule was there, they tried to get into it and they were mercilessly butchered, massacred. An Irava genocide was there. Some 200 Irava young men, they were massacred. They were just peacefully marching towards the shrine and trying to enter that, which was a kavu originally, called Panachikal Kavu. That means it was a Sankarama, a sacred grove and a reserve forest dating back to Ashokan times in Kerala. Kerala is mentioned in the edicts of Ashoka in BC 3rd century. Some 2,300 years ago, the people of Kerala, Kera Putro, that is the address of Emperor, the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka the Great, was called Great by A.T. Wells and other British and European historians. So Ashoka addressed that people as enlightened people of Kerala, Kera Putro or Ketala Putro. In Pali language, Professor Dasan mentioned about Anicca and Anitya and Anatma of the Buddha. The theory of impermanence or Anityavada, or Praditya Samutpada, dependent origination, the cause effect, the rationality, the foundational theory in the whole world, in the whole of human history, that was postulated some 2,600 years ago by the Buddha in BC 6th century. There you have these articulations. Anyway, those people, those cultures, those civilizations of Ashokan Buddhism, those were wiped out by Brahminical patriarchy in Kerala and South India. Unfortunately, from the 7th and 8th century CE, we have the Brahminical Hindu regime, the Chaturvarnya was enforced, and the people were alienated and they were casted away as untouchables. This is what they call the Sanatana Dharma. Again, lifted from the discourse of the Buddha. In Pali, he talks about Dhammo Yesha Dhammo Sanantano. That means whatever is necessary for the sustenance of life and the world, that is the ethics, the rules of ethics, or his Dharma in Pali. And the Sanskritic, Brahmanical, Vedic Aryans, they have appropriated it as Dharma, and they have interpreted it as Varnashrama Dharma. We had recently that Mari Selvaraj film from Paranjit School, and also that the debate that was unleashed by Udaya Stalin, the debate on Chaturvarnya and Varnashrama Dharma. It's a disease, it's a dangerous disease, it's an epidemic like malaria or plague or dengue or this corona that must be eradicated. So, anyway, you can have the recent modes and resonances are still there. You can engage with that also. This is the context in which we are discussing about Poykayil Ammachi. Poykayil Ammachi was the wife, the Dharma Patni of Poykayil Appachan, or he's reverently called Sree Kumara Gurudevan now by the followers of PRDS. PRDS means the Pratyaksha Raksha Daiva Sabha, the independent movement of Dalits, a spiritual and socio-cultural movement that was initiated and founded by Poykayil Appachan or Kumara Gurudevan, Poykayil Yohanan, also called Poykayil Yohanan, and many other ways. Some 18 names were to Appachan, like the 18 synonyms of the Buddha: Advayavadi, Vinayaka, Dashabalu, Shadhabhijno, Advayavadi, Vinayaka. These are all there in the 5th century text called Amara Kosha that was compiled by Amarasimha, a Buddhist monk from South India and Ceylon. He has composed it. And when in 1918, when Naranaguru visited Sri Lanka, he was citing this and stating that I also belong to Buddhism, or my philosophy can also be seen as Buddhism, by citing Amaragosha. So anyway, Poykayil Appachan was having this 18 and more names. And they were reverently called by the people, the untouchables in particular, as the respectful father. Appachan means that. And Ammachi, the respectful, the worshipful, adorable mother. That is the term Ammachi in mid-Travancore. And they have foregrounded Ammachi met Appachan much later. In 1910, in a colonial British court, Poykayil Appachan has declared his organization. His agency was contested by the British magistrate, the white magistrate in the court at Changanashi. And he was into the critique of Bible, and also there were plenty of other, he was with the Bible movement and the evangelical church movements in the beginning, from early 20th century, from 1905 onwards. There are many congregations and meetings and what you call the night kind of gatherings of Appachan, in which he delivered his speeches, and the travel meeting. It is called a travel meeting, the guerrilla meetings, and the traveling kind of. You have Toni Morrison, beloved, and many other African American novels. Morrison talking about the travel meetings and the guerrilla gatherings of the blacks in the forest, in the jungle, in the bush. They had it. They somehow escaped captivity or the daily toil in the plantations or in the households of white masters, and then they gathered. So likewise, these people, they were agricultural slaves. The Paraya in particular, the Paraya or the Sambhava community from which Appachan came, and he organized the other groups also, not just the Sambhava or the Paraya people, but the Pulaya people, the Kurava people, the Pana people, and even the other untouchables. Some other groups were, some Nadas were also with them. Some Irava families were also there. Even some Syrian Christian groups were cooperating with Appachan. Originally, he was with the church, that is why. He was with the Marthoma church originally because they were slaves of that Changaramangalam household, which is a Syrian Christian household, and they were having that agricultural slavery, slave system, and they were slave holding masters. And therefore they were baptized. Appachan was baptized in the infancy itself, and he learned the art of reading and writing. He was also given, fortunately, because they were a bit progressive, though they were having the plantation slavery. He was fortunate to receive English and Malayalam, and therefore he learned the Bible and he tried to interpret the Bible. And later he burned the Bible. So because it was misused, the Bible was misused by the so-called caste Christians. That is the unfortunate case, as Arundhati Roy argues out in her novel and in her many essays. There is no caste for Christianity and Jesus, but unfortunately the Christians in Kerala, the dominant ones in Travancore and Kochi and now also in Malabar, many of them are having caste. That is the unfortunate, contradictory, paradoxical case of caste Christianity, like caste Hinduism. It has percolated and polluted the other religion. Even the minority religions are also polluted by this caste and varnashrama dharma. In that sense, it is eternal, sanatana. It can pollute and it can damage even the other minor religions as well, even Sikhism. The latest religion in the world, in India, the Baha'is are the latest religion. In India, the latest religion is 15th century, 16th century Sikhism. Even Sikhism, within that you find the caste and varna cleavage. You have the Khetri Sikhs, or the so-called Kshatriya and dominant Shudra Sikhs, the Jat Sikhs and other Khetri or Kshatriya Sikhs, and they don't mix up with the Dalit Sikhs, Harkishan Singh Surjit and many others. They were Dalit Sikhs, and they don't even treat them equally like in the Syrian Christian churches or in the cemeteries. They are not even given the equal treatment in the Gurudwaras. Unfortunately, that Holy Guru Granth Sahib is there, in which you will find Raidas and others. Within the Guru Granth Sahib, you find the untouchable poet Raidas or Ravidas, but unfortunately his bhajans are sung by the so-called elite Sikhs, but they don't accept the kith and kin of Raidas as equal brothers. The same thing, that discrimination he identified within the heart of Christianity and the churches, the dominant churches, whether the Catholic or Protestant churches in Travancore, in Kerala, and therefore Appachan abandoned all those congregations and he found his new sect, a new independent community, a spiritual kind of force, organization called PRDS, Pratyaksha Raksha Daivatan. And also he devised its peculiar theology and philosophy and social praxis also. And his lifetime was 1879 to 1939. He passed away after years of struggle. Some 60 years he passed away in 1939. And then it was Ammachi who took over from him. And even before his demise, he was ailing towards the end of his life. So Ammachi was there to support him and guide the movement. And after his demise, in particular, in 1939, Ammachi became the supreme head and the guiding spirit and the philosopher and the spiritual leader, the community and spiritual leader of the PRDS sect. It was having many, many branches by that time. Appachan has actually propagated it to the high ranges, to Kochi and Malabar and down South Travancore. They were having many branches, and Ammachi was there. Ammachi originally, she is from South Travancore in Neyatingara region, close to Nanjinar. Neyatingara, she was born in 1910 in Neyatingara, and at the age of 15, she came to that Iravipedu region, to Kulattur Kunna in Kolathur Kunnu, now in Pathanamthitta district. We had that congregation, the nightly congregation called the Raksha Nirnaya Yoga of Appachan. And she saw Appachan and she made him a master. And at the age of 15, she became the wife of Appachan. And from there onwards, their camaraderie and their spiritual kind of union was there. And soon after the demise of Appachan in 1939, she became the spiritual leader and the leader of the community. And she led it to almost 5 decades. 46 years she has remained as the head and supremo of the PRDS. They were having many branches and many institutions. Appachan himself started many educational institutions, primary schools, English schools, and weaving kind of cottage industries and factory establishments. Plenty of things were there. These were all further developed and extended, and the organizational structure of PRDS was again further what you call accelerated and extended by the mother, Abhivandya Madhav, that is the term of respect, Abhivandya Madhav, that Reverend Mother Ammachi. And she also fought many legal battles. And it is her legal fight in the courts. There were plenty of cases. Some 178 cases were pending. And these cases will run to years and years, some into decades. And she has shown the courage to fight it out. And she, in the 1960s, she got a verdict from the Honorable High Court of Kerala that PRDS is neither a Christian organization or a Christian sect and nor a Hindu kind of thing. It's an independent, spiritual and socio-cultural organization and movement in which the philosophy and theology of Appachan and later Ammachi, Dr. M.B. Manoj himself is there. He has written about those songs and spirituals of Appachan as well as Ammachi in the recent Adiyar Deepam edition, which is the official organ of PRDS, Adiyar Deepam, that was again founded and extended by Ammachi from the 1960s onwards. Earlier on, there were publications, but many were fragmentary and broken, like Antonio Gramsci talking about the subaltern. The subaltern cannot enter history. The history of the subaltern and the speech is episodic and fragmentary. So likewise, from the days of Appachan, from early 20th century onwards, there were many publications and many songs and meetings and sermons done by Appachan himself, but it was given an organizational framework. PRDS itself was given a constitution. It was there during the Nadapadi Kramangal. It is called the Nadapadi Kramangal of PRDS. That was there from Appachan's own days, from 1914 onwards. 1910, I told you, it was declared in the colonial court of Changanashiri. And from 1914 onwards, there was this Nadapadi Kramangal, that was a convention that was practiced by Appachan. But it was given a written kind of constitution after Baba Saheb's own model that we talked about by Ammachi in the 1960s. And also she got it approved by the court of law, by the constitutional interpreting system in India. The Indian court, it has also validated and acknowledged it as legal. That legality was also provided by Ammachi. And in 1967, that is what I was talking about, 67, she got that verdict from the Honorable High Court of Kerala that it is neither Christian nor Hindu, because there were many infights and strifes within the sect. Yali and Guri Simon, some of the disciples, they argued out that it is a Christian organization and people are taking its money and so on and so forth. So they filed a case against Ammachi and the group, and then Ammachi filed a counter affidavit, and for 10 long years the case was the first that Kottayam court, a sub-court in Kottayam, it has given the verdict that PRDS is a Christian organization. Then Ammachi went to moved to the High Court of Kerala, and in 1967, she got the verdict that it's an independent spiritual organization focusing on the philosophy and theology of Poykayil Ammachi. So, plenty of such struggles she has done, and for 46 years, she was the head of PRDS. That is what we need to remember. Nowhere, not even in Black history or African American history or in any other communities of that matter, you find that kind of struggle, continuous struggle from 1939 to 1985. This January is her demise. January 4th is the demise of Ammachi. So, 1985, January 4th, she passed away. Till that moment, she was the supremo, the head, the spiritual leader of PRDS and the community. And she was there for 46 years continuously, unprecedented, unknown to any part of the world or any Dalit movement or any other movement of the people or the excluded anywhere in the world. So that is the uniqueness of Ammachi. But unfortunately, very few writings are on her. She has written herself. Dr. Manoj himself has written about that in Adir Deepam. He has written that songs, the conflicts between or that dialogic kind of relations, the dialogue between what you call the Jnana Botham and the Maya Botham. He has written about the songs. So it is done and devised by Ammachi in the exactly in the Appachan idiom. Like the songs and spirituals of Poykayil Ammachi, you have the songs, and also she has created numerous circulars. Her message was passed on to the people through the circulars of PRDS. And in each circular, she is speaking on behalf of Appachan, and in that same idiom, she is speaking to the people, and these are actually classics in this liberty equality paradigm, the struggle for democracy and representation. I will just read a few, and you will get to know it. This is published by PRDS official organ called Adiyar. That's the concept of Appachan. Adiyar means the ancient First Nations of India. They are the Adiyars. And എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഈ ആദിയർ അടിമകളായി തീർന്നത്? How the Adiyar, the First Nations, Professor Dasan talked about those Aborigines and those Maoris and all, and the Adivasis of India. So how these Adimar have become the slaves in India, that is being pondered by Professor Manoj's one anthology of poetry. It is titled as Mooloor. That is also from Appachan. So in the same idiom, she has extended that and made it more compassionate and more simple. That is what Ammachi has done. Just a few messages, the circular messages, and a few songs and spirituals I will read. And because it is already into time limits, how long I can continue. Okay, so I will read a few and then may touch upon Kurumban Daivatan and others. So in a circular that was published in the PRDS series, PRDS circular series in 1968, you have this message by Ammachi, and it talks about this, about the Adima issue, the slave issue in the history and society of Kerala. For the first time, that's a uniqueness of Appachan, that he has addressed the slavery, the casteist slavery of Kerala. ഒരു പിന്നെ സർക്കുലർ നമ്പർ 8 1968 ഒക്ടോബർ 13 പ്രസിദ്ധീകരിച്ചതാണ് PRDSന്റെ രവി പേരു ഓഫീസിൽ നിന്ന് പ്രസിദ്ധീകരിക്കുന്നത്. That is in now near തിരുവല്ല, രവി പേരു. എന്താണ് അടിമകൾ ഒത്തുചേരാത്തത്? എന്താണ് അടിമകൾ ഒത്തുചേരാത്തത്? പറയർ, പുലയർ, വേടർ, കുറവർ, കിഴക്കപ്പുലയർ എന്നുള്ള ജാതിനാമം ആര് വെച്ചു? ഏത് നിഘണ്ടുവിലോ ചരിത്ര പുസ്തകത്തിലോ ആണ് ഇതുള്ളത്. ഇതിനെപ്പറ്റി ചിന്തിക്കുക. ഒന്നിനൊന്ന് ചേരാതെയും മനുഷ്യനെ മനുഷ്യനായി കാണാതെയും ഓരോ ജാതി മതിലുകൾ കെട്ടി അതിനുള്ളിൽ കിടക്കുന്ന നിങ്ങൾ ഈ ജാതി മതിലുകളെ തട്ടി നിരത്തി വെളിയിൽ ഒന്നായി തീർന്നില്ലെങ്കിൽ ദൈവത്തിൽ നിന്നുള്ള അനുഗ്രഹമോ ഗവൺമെന്റിൽ നിന്നും നിങ്ങളുടെ മൊത്തത്തിലുള്ള ജനസംഖ്യ അനുസരിച്ചുള്ള ആനുകൂല്യങ്ങളോ ലഭിക്കില്ല. So that is the most important thing. From the modern state and the government, from the democratic constitutional republic and the government, you won't get adequate representation. The due and adequate representation, that is the power, that is the thrust, the accent that is given to each message. It is not just what you call the divine or the spiritual kind of thing, but it is very much material and political message, the message of democracy. In this is an example. She is appealing for the struggle for representation, due and adequate representation that Ambedkar has been in the 1930s draft to the Indian Constitution when he went to London for that round table conference. Due and adequate representation. നിങ്ങളുടെ ജനസംഖ്യാനുപാതികമായ പ്രാതിനിധ്യം അതാണ് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് വേണ്ടത് എന്നാണ് അമ്മച്ചി പറയുകയാണ്. അപ്പച്ചൻ was never this much specific because he was living in the pre-constitution. He passed away in 1939. But Ammachi lived in the post-Ambedkarite period and she was a Republican and a constitutionalist. She was for democracy and representation. And ആദ്യത്തെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട മെസ്സേജ് വിദ്യാഭ്യാസം തന്നെ പ്രസിദ്ധീകരിച്ച മുഖപത്രമായ ആദ്യ ദീപത്തിൽ നിന്നാണ് ഞാൻ വായിക്കുന്നത്. 2023 ഡോക്ടർ മനോജിന്റെ ലേഖനമടക്കം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അതിൽ വായിക്കാവുന്നതാണ്. ഡോക്ടർ മായ പ്രമോദ്, നമ്മുടെ ഡോക്ടർ സനൽ മോഹന്റെ സ്റ്റുഡന്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള മായ പ്രമോദ് തന്നെ അമ്മച്ചിയെ കുറിച്ച് അതിൽ എഴുതിയിരിക്കുന്ന ലേഖനം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് വായിക്കാവുന്നതാണ്. വളരെ കുറച്ച് എഴുത്തുകൾ മാത്രമേ അമ്മച്ചിയെ കുറിച്ച് വന്നിട്ടുള്ളൂ. ഏതായാലും ന്യൂ യങ്സ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ആൻഡ് യങ് റിസർച്ചേഴ്സ് ആർ സ്റ്റഡിങ് her because of the struggle for democracy and justice and representation. ജനസംഖ്യാനുപാതികമായ പ്രാതിനിധ്യം 12% ഉള്ളവർക്ക് എങ്ങനെയാണ് 69% പ്രാതിനിധ്യം? അവർക്ക് വീണ്ടും സാമ്പത്തിക പ്രശ്നമാണെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് ജാതി മാത്രം നോക്കി ഫോർവേഡ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന അമിത പ്രാതിനിധ്യത്തിൽ ഓവർ റെപ്രസെന്റഡ് ആയിട്ടിരിക്കുന്നവർക്ക് ജാതി മാത്രം നോക്കി സാമ്പത്തിക നില പരിങ്ങലിലാണ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കൊടുക്കുന്നതാണോ പ്രാതിനിധ്യം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ജനായത്വം എന്ന ചോദ്യമാണ് ഇവിടെ ഉയരുന്നത്. ഇതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് മനസ്സിലാക്കാൻ നമ്മുടെ കോൺസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷണൽ ലിറ്ററസി ആവശ്യമാണ്. അതുകൊണ്ട് എല്ലാ തലത്തിലും ദാസൻ ഇവിടെ പറഞ്ഞു, ഏൻഷ്യൻ ഫസ്റ്റ് നേഷൻസിനെ കുറിച്ച് പഠിക്കാതെ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഡിഗ്രി കിട്ടില്ല. കോൺസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷന്റെ ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ റൈറ്റ്സിലാണ് അംബേദ്കർ ഉൾപ്പെടുത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഏത്? ഡ്യൂ ആൻഡ് ആഡിക്വേറ്റ് റെപ്രസെന്റേഷൻ ഓഫ് ഓൾ കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റീസ്. ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ റൈറ്റ്സ് ചാപ്റ്റർ 3 16.4 and 16.5. അതായത് 16.5 അമെൻഡ് ചെയ്തു. ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് നോ ലോങ്ങർ ദ കോൺസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷൻ ഓഫ് അംബേദ്കർ. അങ്ങനെ അതിനെതിരെ അതൊരു വിഷമാണ്. ഇറ്റ്സ് എ ക്യാൻസർ on the Indian Constitution, originally imagined and envisioned by Baba Saheb from 1920s onwards. 20കൾ മുതൽ അദ്ദേഹം ഈ ആശയം ഉന്നയിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് നടക്കുകയാണ്. 30ലാണ് ആ ഡ്രാഫ്റ്റ് കോൺസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷൻ എഴുതിയെന്നേ ഉള്ളൂ, ഇത് അവൈലബിൾ ആണ്. അത് തന്നെ പൂന പാക്റ്റിൽ അദ്ദേഹം രാജിയാകേണ്ടി വന്നു. 1932 he strategically withdrew because he at a level of humanity, as a humanitarian act, he saved the life that Mahar the untouchable saved the life of that Gandhi. But when he became the chief architect, the chairman of the drafting committee, he very assertively he has included that representation issue in the fundamental rights chapter 3. മൗലിക അവകാശമാണ്, ഓരോരുത്തർക്കും നിയമ കോടതിയെ സമീപിക്കാവുന്നതാണ്, വിഷയമാണ്, പ്രാതിനിധ്യമാണ് അട്ടിമറിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഇന്ത്യയാണ് ഇല്ലാതാക്കിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഇനി ഇന്ത്യൻ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസമാണ് പരിപൂർണമായി തകർത്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന NEP-യിലൂടെ. ഈ സാഹചര്യത്തിലെങ്കിലും നാം ഇതിനെക്കുറിച്ചൊക്കെ ചിന്തിക്കണം. ജനായത്വം എന്താണ്? പ്രാതിനിധ്യത്തിന്റെ രാഷ്ട്രീയവും സാധ്യതയുമാണ് ജനായത്വം എന്ന് മനസ്സിലാക്കി നമ്മുടെ മനുഷ്യരായി ജനിച്ചവർക്ക് ആർക്കും ഇവിടെ അവകാശപ്പെടുന്ന ജന്മാവകാശമാണ്, അല്ലാതെ ആരുടെ ആനുകൂല്യമോ തരുന്നതോ അല്ല. അന്ന് അമ്മച്ചി ആനുകൂല്യം എന്ന വാക്ക് പ്രയോഗിച്ചു, കാരണം അത് ഭാഷയിൽ അങ്ങനെയാണ് സവർണർ ചിട്ടപ്പെടുത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഇപ്പോ ഫോർവേഡ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എന്താന്ന് നമുക്കറിയില്ല. ബാക്കിയുള്ളവർ എല്ലാ മേഖലയിലും 68 മുതൽ 90 വരെ ശതമാനം നിൽക്കുക. ബാക്ക്വേർഡ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എന്താണ്? അണ്ടർ റെപ്രസെന്റഡ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എന്താണ്? പ്രാതിനിധ്യമില്ല, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അൺറെപ്രസെന്റഡ്. ഇവിടെ 8% ഒരു ദളിത് വിഭാഗങ്ങൾ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇന്ത്യയിൽ 17% മുസ്ലിങ്ങൾ, അവർക്ക് ആ 17% ഉണ്ടോ? അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കേരളത്തിലെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയ സമുദായം ഏതാണ്? മുസ്ലിം സമുദായമാണ്. 24-ലധികം ജനസംഖ്യയുള്ളതാണ്. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് എന്ത് നടത്തുകയില്ല? കാസ്റ്റ് സെൻസസ്, സോഷ്യോ എക്കണോമിക് സർവേ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന കാസ്റ്റ് സെൻസസ് നടത്തുകയില്ല. ഇന്ത്യയിലെ കേരളത്തിലെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയ സമുദായം മുസ്ലിം സമുദായമാണ്. 24%-ലധികം പോപ്പുലേഷൻ. അപ്പൊ എത്ര കിട്ടണം? മിനിമം 24%-എങ്കിലും പ്രാതിനിധ്യം കിട്ടണം. എത്രയാണ് പ്രാതിനിധ്യം? നരേന്ദ്ര കമ്മീഷൻ റിപ്പോർട്ട്, അതിന് മുമ്പ് മണ്ഡൽ കമ്മീഷൻ റിപ്പോർട്ട്, ഇതൊക്കെ വ്യക്തമാക്കി എത്രയാണ്. ഇന്ത്യയിലെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയ ന്യൂനപക്ഷമായ മുസ്ലിങ്ങൾക്ക് പോലും ഏതാണ്ട് 0-ത്തിനടുത്തേക്കാണ് ഇപ്പൊ പ്രാതിനിധ്യം കൊണ്ടുവന്നത്. അപ്പൊ ഈ പ്രാതിനിധ്യം എന്നുള്ളത് ജനാധിപത്യത്തിന്റെ ആധാരമാണെന്നും പ്രാതിനിധ്യമില്ലാതെ ജനാധിപത്യം സാധ്യമല്ലെന്നും, അതാണ് നമ്മുടെ നൈതികമായ അംബേദ്കറുടെ ബുദ്ധനിൽ നിന്ന്, എന്റെ മാസ്റ്ററായ ബുദ്ധനിൽ, I take it all from my master, the Buddha, and his Sanghas. That was the statement of Ambedkar in the 1952 BBC interview, and also in the 1955 AIR speech. He reasserted again and again. He reasserted that it is from my master, the Buddha, that I am, and his Vinaya principles. Vinaya Pitagam എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ത്രിപിടകങ്ങളിലെ ബുദ്ധിസ്റ്റ് പാലി കാനന്റെ വിനയ പിടകത്തിൽ നിന്ന് റൂൾസ് ഓഫ് ഡെമോക്രസി അവിടെയാണ് കോഡിഫൈ ചെയ്തത്. The parliamentary system, even the seating system, the voting system, and making a motion and passing a bill, everything is the whipping, the whip, everything was devised by the Buddha 2600 years ago, and not from the French Revolution or from the Magna Carta alone, but from the Vinaya Pitaka Buddha that I am taking. Yes, asserted that is our common heritage, common cultural and civilizational asset, the legacy of democracy, as you find in the Buddha to Ambedkar. That is our common heritage. That has reminded us 1968, October 13. October 14-നാണ് 56 അംബേദ്കറുടെ അശോക വിജയദശമിയിലെ കൺവേർഷൻ നടന്നത്, along with 5 lakh followers. That is also very important. അപ്പൊ ആ ഒരു കാര്യം, നിങ്ങളെ പ്രാതിനിധ്യത്തിന്റെ കാര്യം അമ്മച്ചി ഓർമ്മിപ്പിക്കുന്നത് ഞാനിവിടെ ഒന്ന് സൂചിപ്പിക്കുകയാണ്. പിന്നെ അമ്മച്ചിയുടെ ഇരുന്ന പാട്ടുകളെ കുറിച്ച് MP മനോജ് കൂടുതൽ പറയും, അതുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ അതിലേക്ക് കടക്കുന്നില്ല, സമയപരിമിതി മൂലം. I am concluding. Anyway, I am thankful. Kurumban Daivatan and Mooloor, you can read about all those people, the pioneers of letters in Kerala. Mooloor was the first Avarna poet to get in and accepted as a poet, and then he actually struggled for the nomination of Kurumban Daivatan, and they have written and sung that Pulavrutangal, the ancient songs of the Pulaya people, for representation and justice in the Praja Sabha, in the Sree Legislative Assembly from 1917 onwards. Mooloor and Kurumban Daivatan, they were singing those songs. You can read about all these things, and I thank the department and all the people here, and I hope there will be more debates on democracy and representation, and thoughts and debates on how to make our education system, or how to save the idea of India, democratic India, and how to save our higher education in particular. Thank you.